Hello ladies and gentlemen, Dave Dobbs here. It's the 23rd of August 2022. We just had to, you see on the screen here, you've got the two flybys that Brandon Corey Nagley put up in on March the 17th. And in my last video I recorded one of those two exiting, which was about 10 days ago, and now I'm going to present the data of the second of those two passing. And do you remember when I think that was shot was on? It was also Brandon Corey Nagley. He put that up on April the 29th. And you saw the whole the kind of red object in the night sky. And Area 55 after this continued to show shots of this object falling ever further backwards in the night sky. And I've got some models lined up here for when we go into discussion here, but that shot was on May the 24th. That was Brandon Corey Nagley. Remember, he's shown a similar sort of shots before, especially around about this time, and we're going to come to that now. We're going to go through the sequence of what's just come in. That was Mr. MBB 333 showing the other of the pair that was then by that stage in between us and the sun. And before we go through the latest sightings, let's come back to just the model of where we are now. So, see, we've got Kerberos and Charon. And remember, I built this model back in late 2020, and it was and this whole non-heliocentric model I put together in 2019. I started conceiving the full size of what we're really dealing with, and we're going to go into that a little bit more after we've done all the we're going to look at this the bigger orbital mechanics of this afterwards. But in the immediate story here, you see we've got Kerberos and Charon, and we've got Earth flying around the sun here, and we've got these two. We've watched them coming in on this side, and now we're watching them go out. Remember, when I show you this model, all of these objects are on fixed ecliptic planes in this whole model, running from this specific model runs from the orbital mechanics of it kind of run from 2004. You remember the big tsunami on Boxing Day 2004 to 2023. And so that's 2021, and then we're in 2022, and we're still experiencing. Can you see where Earth is? Earth is here, and we've got these two doing their flyby as I've predicted, and as we've watched since 2010, 2011. And we've had so many shots of the pair, and we've had a lot of opportunity to calculate these coming in. In my last video, like I say, we charted the complete journey of one of these pairs, and now I'm about to, with you, charter the complete journey of the other of the two pairs. So, but before we go to all of those sightings, when we were seeing all of the sightings in my last video of the first of the pairs to pass at this time, as they passed in February, March, April, we had this sighting that people were calling K2. And notice that this sighting here is coming down towards the rising sun, seen from Sweden, I believe, way up in the northern hemisphere, heading down towards the sun, being seen by a massive astronomical audience who were all talking about it. All the big channels, all the big news networks were talking about it. Now, for those who find this a little bit odd, we saw the same thing last year, and we saw the same thing the year before. Do you remember the year before, when around about the time, well, exactly on the day my mum passed, July the 20th, 2020 was the last day we saw it, and then all of the shots thereafter, it was in the daylight sky. And for the astronomical community, they just couldn't believe what they were seeing. As so often is the case. And so now you are kind of wondering, well, if all the shots I've showed you in the last video were not this, but this is the object, this is, let's go back to the model before we explore what's happened over the last week and a half, 10 days of this current flyby. Let's go back to this model here and just remind ourselves of 2017. Now we've got Matt Rogers shot there. Remember, this was 10:45 p.m. at night on the 15th of August, and I always assumed in this model, you can see where, hopefully you can see where I bring that one from. I was always assuming that was Europa, but it wasn't. It was actually the one that I'm about to charter with you now. So this has been an enormous bit of confusion in all of these models, and there's always marginal updates with all of these. And so when this flyby here came out, where was it? On the 20th of January 2017. This one here, coming in from the sun. The sun's behind it, it's coming towards us. It's the one I'd said, look out for, it's going to be massive. It comes in, I say the 24th of January, just like Carlos Ferrada said, the 24th of January to 1939, the year the Second World War began. The same flyby coming in, causing the same havoc, the same long duration volcanoes that commence after this big flyby that put me on the map. You know, people just looking at going by saying, what the hell is that? You know, it was considered to be, you know, it came on Trump's inauguration day. That is the same object that we saw in July, K2, what they were calling K2. That is the one. Do you remember I said you cannot tell me there's not going to be oceanic anomalies? You know, on the 28th of September 2018, I said, you know, we are seeing this massive. Do you remember my name was in June 2018 because of the massive sighting and all the kind of great Earth changes that were going on in June 2018, let alone May 2018, when Kilauea had gone off non-stop for 6 weeks. And yes, we're going to get to the whole Icelandic volcano that has just gone off for the entirety of this flyby that we've just had. That's all coming up. These are all about long duration volcanoes now. Well, it was all about long duration volcanoes, but that is all changing now. And I'm of a mind that that's all changing because these flybys that we're experiencing, and the flyby that I just showed you of Matt Rogers on the 15th of August 2016, and because of, if I come to this flyby, I mean, I just don't want to leave this point. I've deliberately came to this because this is the same flyby that is K2, and this was caught by, I was saying in 2018, still locked onto a heliocentric model, saying, look out for it, you're going to see it. And then Alex Lujan caught it on the 1st of September 2019. And I said, look out for it, you're going to see it, it's going to be coming in, it's going to be going around our sun, because I still had it going around our sun. I couldn't imagine, and I couldn't work out how to locate or the position of a of something over here, that all of these objects could be coming in and around. And then we saw it on the 1st of September 2019, and it was coming in and going back out this side of the sun. It wasn't coming in and going around our sun at all. We'd watched it so many times. I'd come out to America on the day of that flyby, on the 17th of August 2017, and it'd come in as I'd come into America. We'd all seen it, we'd all watched this thing coming in and going out. Excuse the noise of whatever that is flying by. Hopefully I'm wearing a little a localized mic here, so hopefully it's not pulling in all the sounds from around, and hopefully you're still getting this recording. But we've got this object coming in, and I just don't know of the timing of it, because the reason I brought you back to this video was, if I come back to this shot here, Matt Rogers' favourite shot on the 14th of October 2016, where you not only see Jupiter, but you see it plasma charging into something. And because of the position of our planet at the time of this shot, looking northeast where this shot was taken, it's where Mars was. It meant that this object was moving out across the path of Mars. This thing was on the same ecliptic plane as Mars and Earth are on. The shot that Matt Rogers got on the 15th of August 2016, the epic shot, which I just showed you, was showing us that this big object was on the same ecliptic plane as our Earth, and also Mars orbit around the sun. All of these evidence. And so we had this confusing sort of thing about this striped planet that we first saw really massive in May 2018, just when, ironically, Killer Whale was going absolutely crazy as well, and we couldn't explain it, we couldn't fathom it out. And until I built this model, and it was people like Christina Lamont, it was people like, saved it there, Steve Rady, who showed me this shot also on the day my mum died, on the 20th of July, when we were seeing what we were calling Comet Nearwise coming in on the opposite side, coming in. We were like, Matt Rogers caught the shot on the 15th of August, 10:45, like at night, when it came into view. Same with the shot. Well, let's not get confusing there, because we just come back to our view of this, the view of this object coming in that we were calling Nearwise, being seen in the night sky just before sunrise, coming straight down towards the sun, just like K2. It's just like, guys, we're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. It's just like what happened from 2010, 2011, when I started chartering these same objects, these same flybys that we were seeing, and chartering them every 200 days. And finally realizing that this blue planet is coming around with these twins. And I'm going to take you through, the reason I have to take you through this little sequence of events is because in the sequence of events I'm about to show you of what's happened over the last 14 days, and the position and the sighting of K2 being seen from Sweden this time, and not from Britain, being seen further in the northern hemisphere, not closer to the ecliptic as I was imagining it was going to come closer to the ecliptic. Remember the massive shot in the middle of October, around about October the 20th, Calvin looking for Hobbs. I'd made the massive video. I was absolutely sensationally shocked. I was just like, guys, how can it get any bigger? And I haven't got that on screen right now, but hopefully I'll just put a screenshot of that over as I'm saying that, if I can find it. But for those of you that can remember that, just an utterly epic shot. And so what I'm trying to tell you is that let's go through now. Let's go through, because we made sense of all, we'd seen all these stripy shots, and finally Mr. BP Earthwatch, who'd been putting me onto Jupiter for a long time, bringing me back constantly, saying this is all Jupiter. Hopefully I've mentioned all of so many other people that have sent me these shots, and Matt Rogers' shot of this same thing in 2021. Do you remember the same time? Epic shot of the blue planet. I haven't got that up right now, but wherever you are, Matt, understand that you caught one of the most pivotal shots of history. In actual fact, you've caught two, and so many more, but two of the most incredible shots that have ever been caught, mate. Just like this shot I'm showing you here that Steve Rady caught on the day my mum died. Same day, like I say, the last day we saw Comet Nearwise in the night sky before it plunged completely into the morning sky. And so let's go through. Let's go through, come through now to the, we're going to start, remember that what's just happened now is Icelandic volcano went off for about 16 days, 17 days from start to finish, and it stopped just a few days ago, and it's gone off throughout the whole duration. And this is a little kind of like spectacular, I'm not even going to try and say that name just yet because I'm going to make such a mess of it, but this Icelandic eruption is a look back of just the whole of the whole thing from start to finish. And so we've had that going off. So we've had evidence of something coming in close, affecting this planet and moving away. Then we get Nibiru Followers Anonymous showing us this epic TikTok. I'm not going to play the video. I can only ask you to just do your research, follow it. We saw the same thing happen. Do you remember in the lead up to 2017-18? You'll see it in my earlier videos of the earlier model when I was still trying to bring it all into a heliocentric model and massively struggling because of all these things that were beginning to happen from May, June, July and August. It was just like, how did I ever, you've seen this massive evolutionary step that I've taken as I've learnt to use Universe Sandbox and more sophisticated animation packages dedicated to astronomics. And as I've been able to do these and we've been able to experiment with these bigger models to build them out, we've been able to kind of like have a view. And I'm not saying I'm correct, I'm just a window on this, and I've evolved this understanding all the way through with all of these sky watchers' help, and I'm just an opinion in this, so don't think it's right or wrong. It's just an opinion. So do check her out. She's been going for a long time. I'm a massive fan, and thank you for all that you do. And she's massively influenced by all of Sam Hoffman's work. And he didn't make a lot of videos, but he postulated fantastic ideas, and he caught some of the big sightings of this when it was on the ecliptic plane, and these sightings were really massive around about 2015, 2016, when we were getting all the massive sightings. Not that we aren't now, we're just saturated with them all around us, and they're so massive that we can't really get a window on them anymore. So we don't get the small sightings that we got from 2010, 2011 to kind of 2015, 16. Now they're all just epic. So then we see a tsunami destroys a beach in Spain. So we're starting to see these big tidal surges. Then we see, very strong earthquake in New Zealand. Then we see crazy flooding in France. Don't forget, we've had the worst floods in history in China throughout this whole process. This is most absolutely devastating. We're seeing unbelievable droughts right across Europe, right across many places, as all the moisture in the world is being sucked up into these superstorms because of these dust particles and because of these immense amount of volcanoes that are going off. And we are lumping all of these massive volcanic eruptions into one big eruption here and one big eruption there. It's a bit like what Obama did when he put loads of different nukes that could be on board one ship or one aircraft carrier or whatever, and he could just lump them as one bomb. And they've done the same thing with volcanoes. So the Kilauea has kind of boiled down to one eruption in the last million years, because it's just one big volcano and it's a constant volcano, so that can be boiled down to one or something stupid like that. It's gone mad. So we're not really reporting or having a full understanding of what's really causing these mega storms. Imagine all the particles coming up from these volcanoes, all the moisture coming up from all the boiling oceans and condensing on these particles and creating these super vortexes, which create these superstorms in our skies. And here we've got, look, evidence of asteroids. If I zoom in on that, you can literally see this came in from outer space as this flyby occurred. Well, look, I've got a big Chinook come in to buzz by there. So we're making a little video talking about flybys. So that was Brandon Corey Nagley, and he posted that ironically on the 17th of August. What day did I come to America for the big flyby? Come on, guys. Start seeing the bigger picture here. You know, and I always think it's really good to always stop on that model there, because remember, this model here is, well, we'll come back to that in a shake of his little showing of the planets there. But we're hopefully we're going to come back to that at some point and explore that and try to imagine what it would be like if, instead of this object and this object supposedly orbiting our sun, imagine these two objects just actually sitting next to each other as they orbit something bigger. And that's what I've had to learn to really develop, you know, and an understanding. Not that, you know, imagine this thing on a 3,600 year orbit, and it finally comes into our sun after 3,600 years. How long would it be around the centre of our sun before it buzzed back out to whence it came? It wouldn't be a flyby that has lasted since the time of Galileo. This arrival of Jupiter in Galileo's time, this literal arrival of this big object in Galileo's time, and becoming part of our star system and tracking with us, and its objects giving us this effect that we've been seeing, and we've been assuming our planets orbiting our own sun. So terrible floods hit UK at the same time. We're seeing evidence of massive solar storms coming from our sun as these objects have come in between us. And then snow in South Africa, and then we're getting the silhouette of something flying by on Mr. MBB33's channel on the 20th of August. He's showing some incredible shots there. You know, all the evidence, and then we see Brandon Corey Nagley shot there, huge planet. He sees it and he charters this. This is just something he's filming. The sunrise is on the other side, and he's showing this in the south skies, and it finally dims to this whole flyby. He knows what it is. He's chartered it. We're chartering this object. We've got this. We've done it so many times. We've been at this juncture so many times. We understand the entrance and exit corridors now of things that come in and orbit right round our sun, that are anything that's exoplanetary. These are the entrance and exit corridors of things that actually come right in and orbit around our sun, that aren't actually in a regular orbit as such. So he's caught it fantastically there. And then epic shot. You know, this is Planet X Hunter. And I love Alex Luhan, who calls himself the real Planet X Hunter. And there's a lot of debate amongst the sky watchers, and it's good, healthy debate. You know, it's good, healthy debate. But Alex Luhan does call himself the real Planet X hunter. But Planet X hunter was the first person who called himself Planet X hunter, and with shots like this, you know, Alex Luhan has caught some of the most epic shots I've ever seen. But I tell you what, when I saw this going by, and he captures this flyby in such epic, that is the tail of this object. And can you understand that when you're seeing this object compared to these other twin tail objects, let me go back to this flyby here actually. See Kerberos and Charon there coming, Kerberos and Charon coming around there, and Europa over here, looking like it's going to orbit our sun, looking like it's going to come in and orbit our sun, but it doesn't actually come in, it goes off around there. It's a perturbation of its own orbit because the object is orbiting, is actually so close to our sun, they're coming in off there. And can you imagine that these two objects, these three objects, this one's moving slightly faster, it does an orbit around whatever it orbits, this Pluto, whatever you want to call it, in 1 year, it will travel 1 year and 1/12 more of its orbit. It's traveling 1/12 faster than Earth. And if that's correct, and these two are traveling slightly slower than they do one rotation in 1 month slower than it takes Earth to do a full orbit. That's why they kind of drop back at this critical point when they're coming in. It looks like they're going to overtake, but we actually overtake them until we come round to here. And as we start coming in and coming round and basically going in this direction, and they more or less continue in this direction, their speed effectively becomes faster than us at this point. So they overtake us, and we've just seen both of those transit and overtake us and actually come from above and then drop down under. But their above was just above us when they came in. It was just above us when they came in, and they went out under us. So what's going to happen in this next flyby, they should be coming in higher. They should be coming in higher. But, you know, that's their next big point. This comes to this point, you know, if we go back, you know, this is where these objects become 2022, 2023. You'll notice that the biggest earthquake range this year was actually over here in, I might even have that up in one of the next flybys. Well, just staying with this, if you can imagine that we saw this shot, Brandon Corey Nagley shot that on the 22nd of August. We saw this shot here on the 21st of August, same bright colour. But going back to this shot that Brandon Corey Nagley shot, I'm not too sure where he got that video. He's got all the places where they came from, but he shows that shot again. We know it's gone through. It's going through into our night sky. It's gone below us, if you like, there, and we're just seeing in our night sky. Not in our night sky, but it's not on the sunny side anymore. It's past. We've seen all the evidence. You've seen it streaking by. which means that this object is a Jupiter object. It's still between us and the sun. It's the same shot that can I get to it there? We're going to come to 2020, that shot on the 19th, on the 9th of August maybe, on the 9th of July 2000 and no, actually I'm wrong. I'm going to correct this now. I can correct all of these now because as I go through them I can correct them. So now I can tell you that that object there is the same object. It's the one that I've just showed you that's just passed. It's the same object dropping. See, it's further back last year, those 2 years ago. So it's just blocking the sun. It's coming in on the ecliptic. It's come from above and it crossed the ecliptic there and right in between us and the sun. And it is that same object that Matt Rogers caught on the 15th of August 2016, his most famous shot that put him on the map. And Steve Rady caught us the big blue shot. Excuse the big flyovers of the big helicopters when I'm making my little videos. I've had Chinooks sit directly above my caravan and just hold their position and the whole caravan shake. So that was that shot, and that was Steve Rady's shot because it was so much closer actually that it would have completely eclipsed our sun. And I'm understanding now that this object came for its closest flyby in 2018. That's when it was closest on the ecliptic. We've done the big ecliptic, I think, possibly in, the biggest, Eric's biggest experience of this was in around about June the 20th, 21st, which is directly, remember if I come back to, I'm so sorry, we're back between all these different flybys. If we come back and we use, we now come back to, we're just going to stay, actually we'll just stay with just doing 2022 there, just to remember what happens here as we come round and those come in. See, this is where my prediction is kind of is all going wrong in this model. And like I say, when I built this model, it was all working on the assumption that this Europa was always dropping one calendar month back every year. But I truly do not know what's going to happen in September when we come to that point. I really don't know. Basically, this is where this is going, because that's probably what you're all wondering. What's the next? We've just had that one go by, and we've got this big blue one that we know has got to come out over the top of us. That's correct. It's got to at the moment I'm assuming it crossed, let's just, sorry to be so confusing, but you see how I've got Europa around January coming in there and going out in kind of like March, April, but we wouldn't be, we'd be over here by then. So I was assuming that we'd be a long way away from that one. And in reality, what's happened is La Palma went absolutely crazy from when was La Palma? La Palma was last year Iceland went off from March to August, and then late August, September, La Palma started round about here. So this object would have actually been coming in there, and it would have been affecting us there. And so it's much more like this object has been travelling almost at the same speed as Earth, constantly all the way through this. Remember Calvin looking for Hobshot, which just completely perplexed me and caused me this whole new rebuilding of this model. And trying to make sense of that. And I had that going back every year from that point. And quite evidently that's not been the case. And so these are all just corrections to this 2020 model, really, but they're very small corrections, because it's kind of like, you come back to this. What I was going to do was just try and show you the frontal mode of that, wasn't I? And just to try and bring us back to, so if we come back from this point where we have all of these flybys occurring here, because we're so close to these two objects, and we see Pluto and our Sun orbiting planet X, and this is the discovery of Pluto here. And we see all of our big discoveries of all of our major players, and we go back to 262, where we had 3 days of darkness. The complete collapse of the Roman Empire in 262, just as Jesus had prophesied. So Jesus had been laughed at by the Romans because he could see he could see the arrival of Jupiter, or whatever you want to call it, the arrival of Pluto, the arrival of Uranus, the arrival of Neptune, the arrival of this big blue Kachina. And he connected to whatever this was and saw that this was the massive policeman of this earth that regulates this earth and keeps it in check to keep it sustainable. And he said that you could not be ruled by you could not rule humanity by barbaric rule anymore. That was no longer the way. And the Romans laughed in his face and crucified him. And then in 262, his prophecy came true. 3 days of darkness, earthquakes across Asia, earthquakes across Europe, earthquakes across Africa. You see scenes of Greece completely broken, and the pillars just torn apart. Everything broken. And the Romans flee. Eventually, this is when we're told the Goths came in to sack Rome, because it was on its knees, and then the plagues came in, and then the famines came in, and then they finally left Rome, because Rome was just a massive row of volcanic activity. All the sulfur dioxide was creating all these famines, and all the red dust was coming down from the skies, and all that Jesus has prophesied came down upon them. And they took on the orbital mechanics of all of this, and this became their God. They embodied the words of Jesus completely. They took on the kind of teachings of Christ in a whole new way. You know, the Roman Empire, it became the Roman Catholic Church, you know, forming in Constantinople, simply because they'd migrated to Turkey because of the upheaval that had decimated the Roman Empire. And this is how this thing has been formulated. It's the fear of this massive thing, you know. Or, you know, in Galileo's time, they were the gospel writers. They were the ones who seeing this coming in. They were the apostles of Christ, of this thing. We are the apostles of Christ in these days because we see it. Most are in denial of it. This is the Christian God that they're all so scared of. This is the God that they know they have to rule with decency on this planet, and if they break the rules, all hell lets loose. That's why all the things that are done, that's why we build nuclear power stations on fault lines. It's Christianity. It's we take Jesus off the cross and we put the earth on the cross, and we say the earth is dying because of your sins, because you are polluting the earth with carbon dioxide, even though carbon dioxide is the most essential gas you can imagine, and the earth sucks it up. We demonize it and we say we have to build nuclear power stations on fault lines to stop the carbon dioxide spewing out of volcanoes and fault lines, which is where the lion's share of all this carbon dioxide is coming from, even though the earth is desperately sucking it up because it desperately needs carbon dioxide to do its process. And so when we sort of like see this kind of our connection to this big blue object, imagine this is going forward. Our sun is going forward in this direction. Pluto, or whatever you want to call it, is going forward in this direction. And they are all orbiting the Milky Way, but they are in an orbital relationship, even though they're all going forward in this direction. And this takes 5 times to orbit this in 1800 years. And our sun does 6 rotations around this in 1800 years. And so once every 1800 years they sync up, and this is their sinking point. And they eventually come around Galileo's time when they're getting closer, you know, and this is obviously Isaac Newton's time and William Herschel's time and Neptune's time and Pluto's time, and back to 262. And this time is a whole new level of evolution that is required of humanity, because this will no longer be humanity with stabilizers. This will no longer be, this time after this, as Earth ascends, understand that in this model it seems that I always assumed that this was rising above the ecliptic and then dropping below the ecliptic, but this has been sitting on the ecliptic. And it is our sun that has dropped below the ecliptic of the solar system from 1930 and dropped below, and has resurfaced in 2017, 2016. It resurfaced at this point to come above and ascend. It is our sun that has ascended through the system. And we can definitely guarantee that because of our sightings and all of the astronomics I can show you, I've shown you here. We can see that our sighting of what we're calling K2 in July being seen not from the latitude that we see it here in the south of England, where we saw it in 2020, but to see it in 2022 from Sweden, from the northern hemisphere, so high, coming in early in the morning, heading straight down towards the sun, is your final and most pivotal evidence that all of these objects are coming now from the ecliptic plane. It means that when they now cross, it's going to become, one of these, we're going to see what happens. It's unpredictable what's going to happen from September right through to kind of the big flyby time same as Carlos Ferrada's flyby time in January the 20th, when this object could potentially fly by. It's going to be September or January, or the whole thing like we saw last year, or an extremity on one side or the other. And if it's an extremity on one side or the other, and it's coming in much more from above to below, rather than tracking with us almost on the same ecliptic and not creating nearly as much. Remember, two windings, the faster you move them across each other, the bigger the electrical surge. So we saw what happened in the Carrington event in August in 1859. Massive surge of electricity coming from above to below. We saw what happened in Iceland from March 2021 to August 2021. We saw long duration volcano, but we did not see electrolysis, but we saw the same flyby on the 26th of February 2010. And then the next day, remember the Icelandic volcano, the super high single eruption that was high electrolysis, a massive surge, massive release of magma very quickly, huge great acceleration, boom. And then on the 27th of February 2010, the massive 8.8 earthquake in Chile from north to south in 24 hours. And we see what it is when a flyby traverses the ecliptic plane from top to bottom rather than runs parallel with it. One when it is perpendicular, one when it is parallel. And I'm of a mind that this next flyby, because we're seeing it coming in from the northern hemisphere, this thing is only just plunged through the whole big object, whether you want to call it Pluto. It's not the blue object, it's the object that the big blue object orbits. That has only just dropped through the ecliptic plane of, our sun has only just plunged through the ecliptic plane of that system's orbit, that system's ecliptic plane. We have just ascended. So we've got an unknown flyby coming in that you will have to make your own decisions about, based on your own orbital mechanics and how you choose to see this. All I can tell you is that if we once we understand this, and we can understand that I was wrong about the big blue object, this big blue object orbiting this big red one here, that I assumed caused the big Jupiter plasma shot on the 14th of October 2016, Jeff P's epic shot that I always show overlapping that. But in actual fact, this object did indeed come round, and like I say, in 2008 caused the biggest earthquake in the Sichuan province, May, June 2018, that caused the massive financial crash, that caused so many massive skyscrapers, was the biggest kind of property damage any earthquake or volcano had done since 2004, easily. It was massive. And I finally realised that same flyby that was also the object that caused the 2004 tsunami, this same big object, that this is a real player, that we've seen this coming in. We know that we're going to expect an external flyby of this object at some point. We've seen it coming in, and we've done the big flyby of it coming in. And the sequences of that, we've never done the big flyby, in my opinion, of it going out yet. And I've imagined that will be the big, whatever causes these 3 days of darkness. If that was to ever happen, that will be this object not coming out here, but it will be looping right round our sun and coming out here, and it will be of an August type of August, August, September, kind of late August, September type of flyby. Maybe this year, maybe next year, who knows? It's up there. I've shown you all the evidence. We've just seen too much evidence. You can say what you like about it, but the mathematics of it are absolutely exact. This thing ultimately is what it is, and every time I postulate ideas, it presents what it is to me, and I update my findings with those results, and I have constantly done that, and here I am doing it again. This thing, we have passed the ecliptic. We are in the ascension times. We are not plunging into the ecliptic. I thought right up to probably just a few days ago that I was still convinced that maybe we were just all early. No. We were right on time. We all came together, believe it or not, when we made the big channels about this. And this was massive. We were there chartering us moving through the ecliptic plane of the big system we really orbit. And we are all taking our places within this great alliance of that now. This is the ascension process that you are in now. And these are in the final kind of parts of this. This is a big, big, big story that we're all part of, and it has taken thousands of years. Just this flyby alone is been from Galileo's time, and it will take as long to go out the other side. This model doesn't take you all the way down to the other side of it. You have to kind of, to understand the other side of this now, you have to go from the time of Jesus. You have to go from the the time of Jesus. You'd have to go from the time of Jesus up like 400 years, which would be the reverse. It's like Galileo's time. Over the next 400 years, seeing it becoming a distant object again. And but where I was going to go was where you understand these objects, this big blue object that actually comes all the way around our sun, and then it's two objects that flank it, the pair, and this big object that comes in this way. I mean, they're already coming in over and above, and there's a whole reason why this has occurred. But remembering this forward motion and this forward motion, and the Earth is here at the front here of this, that is December the 21st. And when it's at the back here, when the Earth is at the back here, here, when the Earth is at the front here, it's December the 21st. When it's at the back here, it's June the 21st. And so when this big object flies back round here, it comes around the front of Pluto, and it comes so close to our sun, it gets drawn in, it does a flyby of our sun. We experience the closest proximity of us and that object was on the 21st of June, 2022. We were massively close to it at that stage. And then we track with it and it comes around the other side. And, you know, we are massively connected to that right now, all of us. That, for many of us, is our higher soul address. That's where many of our souls, and most of our souls here, have been migrating to. That is where and this is where my understanding of this comes in. This is where my bigger understanding of my whole journey within this. You know, understanding that, you know, we're just coming back to that notion here before I talk about that. Can you understand that if those objects coming round here and this big object coming round here travelling at a similar speed, we can understand that this big object, if it's travelling, if it's doing one rotation at a similar speed to these objects, which have got a much bigger circumference because they're coming in, they're being drawn right, their orbit is so big. Like this object, they're being drawn in and around the sun, and they're coming up to near the orbit of Earth and coming out the other side. And yet they're taking the same time to do the orbit of this object that's coming in, and it does a duration, admittedly a little bit faster, but they're similar orbits. It implies that this object that's coming in and going out is a bigger object. And it also implies that this big object that's coming in, that actually comes in, this big blue object that we're seeing now, because the other objects are still all past, we've seen them go by, and we're still seeing this big blue glowing object in the sky, and it's still there. It's still between us and the sun. And so we can tell so much about this little aspect of this August flyby. It's revealing all of these aspects coming together now. Tell us that these twins are much smaller in density to this object that's coming in here and going out, and this other this is a big one, this big blue one. And this other twin tail object that it comes in and goes out this side is also a very big twin tail object. This one now, this big blue one that's still between us and the sun, is big, and it's shrouded in something fantastic. It is pearlescent. It is, in my opinion, our second Earth. And this other big object, the Dobbs object, the original Dobbs object, what I would call the Dobbs object, is the bigger of all of these three twin tail objects. It's a big one. We don't know its orbital mechanics, but it doesn't look as I originally thought when I built this model, to be dropping back one calendar month every year. Not by La Palma's earthquake last year, as offering that as tangible evidence to something tracking with us the whole while through. Just like you see, well, I call it Europa because I call it a name, Europa, because it was the first one I saw, and obviously it was the first one that Galileo saw. This would have been, well, you know, in my opinion, what Galileo would have seen. Well, actually, that's not strictly true either. I always thought that, but now I'm realising that the whole system would have been so much further away that if he'd seen a moon flying by himself and seen it big blue, and they had to put him under house arrest because of his sightings of this massive thing he was seeing with a telescope, 30 times telescope, like a bad iPhone, and he could see it right there in all its moons. It was probably the furthest orbiting of all of these objects, what I'm calling Charon. And of course, why did I call the furthest orbiting object Charon? It's because Charon was the name of the biggest planet that Robert Harrington found orbiting Pluto in the 70s. He was the biggest influence who led Zecharia Sitchin to believe in this 3,600 year orbit. And it is a 3,600 year orbit, I guess, because 2 cycles of this take you back to the Mayan times when they saw the big blue Kachina, the big red Kachina, and they jumped on board the blue Kachina themselves. And this is when many souls migrate. They don't leave Earth, they just migrate their soul address, and they change their soul address from an astral form 4th dimension, which is their own private astral realm, and they jump up where all of our best is transferred to a higher realm, and that is the 5th dimension. That is all of the best of Earth, and that is where many of the souls that are incarnating now, that have been incarnating now, that's why I wrote Laughing Gas, was saying that we're going into a singularity, and many of the souls that are incarnating now are going to return solely to their higher place, and the egos are going to come in now, and each human being will choose between an ego and a higher self, and that's where we're back to now. That's what this is all about. That's the big process that's unfolding. That's everything that's been going on through this massive flyby that you've been living in. This big flyby once, you've been around for the biggest transition of crossing the ecliptic plane of the system that your sun really orbits. Well, they're busy with the helicopters today. Lots going on. You know, they're getting ready for a lot of activity, and you can imagine as this next flyby comes in, if there is going to be a big flyby, and certainly as we get close to this big blue object where many souls, remember every soul that jumps to the 4th dimension, from the 4th dimension to the 5th, they can keep their bodies if they can stay rooted into the heart of the matter. And the attempts now by the governed to rule over, mente to rule over your mind, is to keep humanity rooted into war, to keep the soul rooted to the human state in a state of war. And keep the vibration of humanity low, to be rooted into the ego consciousness, so the ego does not lose its footing in this. And if the human chooses war, it will become its ego. And if it chooses peace and it wishes to stay here, many are going to offer their bodies over to their egos through this process, because that's what they did. The egos are not evil, they're not bad. They are a lot of souls that got stuck in a space where they took their world to a place where it was non-sustainable and it died. And from that space they have invaded the Earth astral realms. Astral 4th dimensional realms, and they've been parasites to those realms because their own realm, their own 3rd dimensional realm, which enabled them to manifest in the 4th, perished because of war and greed and aggression and power and profit and all of the things that subvert our world, all in the very same way. The whole thing has been lived out in the same fashion through the ego consciousness that has thought its way through the last 2,000, 3,000 years of this world, but has not felt a thing because it has never been here in the heart of the matter. And now those that choose the ego will tally with that, can embody that. It's not evil, it's not wrong. You could call it merely economic. And those who choose heart, it's just a choice of which way and where you choose to tally. There's no right or wrong or good or bad. It's just bringing that which humanity chooses to be through this. This is humanity's sacred journey and humanity's sacred right to choose which soul incarnates within it. For whatever reason. You know, and we are all lobbying the soul. Ultimately, humanity is in service to soul. One way or another, humanity is in service within this whole process. Another big message, another big video. You're right in it. What can I tell you? It's too mad for most of you to see right now. It's too big. The story's too massive. Most of us are in fractured religious belief systems that separate us from the true orbital mechanics of what's going on here. But know that if you can see this, however you choose to see it, there is no difference between you and any of the apostles. You know, it takes great courage to see the orbital mechanics of what causes what many are now causing grand solar minimum. You put this model over the top of Valentina Sarkova's model of the dynamo, her dynamo, solar, or sun dynamo system, sun dynamo model. You'll see that these orbital mechanics, you look at your 11 years of sun, your small periods of sun solar cycles, where we see these kind of like sun doing these cycles, they fit over the cycle of Jupiter almost exactly. All of these models fit over each other. I merely show you the orbital mechanics of grand solar minimum and what causes these massive great plasma bursts, as Jeff P. caught blatantly on a webcam. We all downloaded it. He took us to it. He showed us that. He showed us some of the most epic shots when we were all crossing the ecliptic plane of the system our sun really orbits, just as all the 2012 has told us we would do, and just as they told us, just as we arrived into that, and Fukushima goes bang. This is absolutely perfect in every way. So now we see the great unfolding, and obviously, the reverse of, as we see the unfolding, the reverse of 2011, well that, we see one happen this year, and it looks like the next one happens, the unfolding of that, the reverse of that, if you like, the unfolding of that is the 11th of March 2023, isn't it? That's the other side of the ecliptic plane of that flyby that happened in 2011. The reverse of that, and we can see the earthquakes getting bigger, and we can see that these two flybys here in 2020, just as I show, we're actually getting further back, and that means that we were seeing them quite close to they were basically quite, the shot, where was it? It was 2020. If I'm getting that right, yeah, around about there. I thought it was Hydra that was blocking, the big blue one that was causing like I say, Nick Thomas's shot on the 9th of July 2020 that blocked the sun, but actually it was this one, or one of the pairs, the last one of the pairs, and it was that one, and it was there, and it's just dropping back to there. So if I come back to 2020, you 2022, can you see it's dropping right back? It's down here now, round at this point, not up here. It's back here, and if I go to 2023, you'll see in 2023 we're right back to March. And so, you know, there's corrections to this model, but they're all going to the same place. It was, you know, it's the real, you know, there's a few errors here and there, but it's a complex thing. It's a complex thing. If you've managed to stay with me this far and stay with me this, I promise you, you've got, believe it or not, way more than a PhD. Way more than a PhD in the Dobbs model. And if you've got this far with me, then you are starting to understand. Where you are and your place in the universe, and the doors that are open to you right now, if you can hold peace in your heart and walk and talk your truth. And many of you, just by seeing these truths, have managed to make decisions through this, because you've seen one aspect of truth. That one aspect of truth has opened up a peephole to so much more truth. You, if you see this, are the disciples of Christ. And if you understand the orbital mechanics of this, your Christ consciousness within this. And the pain of seeing this and knowing the risks that we take at this time. You know, you're it, basically. You're it. Shanti, don't you? Shanti. No. Of course you're chewing a shoe. Oh my goodness. You little rascal. So I better love you and leave you there, and go and salvage the little one's shoe before it gets ripped to bits. Whoops. So much love. So much thanks for kind of staying with me this long. Sorry my videos are so long, it's such a massive thing. I don't make them that often, and I don't know, for those of you who follow them long enough, you know, you see me going on about the same things, but these are very small changes we're making to this. But for me, it's this is my therapy of going through this and trying to talk my truth through this, and just keeping a top on this and staying on top of this and staying on top of this model. But yeah, we're through it. We are through it. We're through the worst of it. And we've done most of the flybys now, I think. Well, done a few of them. We've got a few left, haven't we? Let's face it. Let's face it. But they're getting harder to calculate now. But we can understand so much more now about the system, what we can expect, and prepare on so many different levels. Remember, everything you create and love here, someone might pay you a rotten wage to go and build something they want to build. But if you build that thing with love and forget that they're tight, forget that they're selfish, forget that they have no consideration of others, and they're just thinking about furnishing their little astral fourth dimensional realm, and they can't think much bigger than that, of what that might be if they built a a fifth dimensional realm, which they invited with lots of other people in love and creativity. So they built something on a higher level, and they funded things on a higher level. And what they would build on a higher level, if they brought happiness to it, because they might build it for them on a fourth dimensional, but if you add happiness to the equation and don't care for their selfishness, give it no airtime at all, and just enjoy in the love of being involved and doing that, you create that in the fourth dimension, in the fifth. You create that in a higher realm, as well as in your own fourth dimensional realm. You create it in a higher realm. You know, if you're on the third, if you're in the third dimension, as in if you have a physical body in the third, you are an architect of the fourth. You are an architect of the fourth dimension and the fifth, and potentially so much higher. I've only had glimpses of our architecture in the fifth. That's why I wrote Laughing Gas. Little glimpses. All the love in the world. Honey in the heart. 1,000 thank yous. And I'm still going to try and send out this this book. And I've got this original first edition copy of Laughing Gas, which I'm going to send to JDoc74, which I've been looking everywhere for and finally found, and it wasn't burnt, and so that's coming your way. And I'm so sorry I haven't sent anything through for such long. I've been struggling with it all, to be honest with you, so much. Just not me knowing how to move forward and whether we've really passed or whether I was just early, and finally I have a window on this. Admittedly, I'm a bit sure about what's going to happen with this, what I call Europa, but you know, it's a bit untold now. I'm of a mind that the long duration volcanoes have stopped, but we kind of we could have a bit of an electrical pulse with a big flyby coming in. I'm not too sure if it's going to be September or December, January. I'm really not sure. Really not sure at all. But I'm not going to make too many videos about this right now, and everything's going on. You know, you see what's happening in the Middle East. In Ukraine. Both sides are all kind of like all fighting between this massive nuclear power station, the biggest in all of Europe. The biggest in all of Europe. And heavier artillery is being brought in, and it's just scaling up. And this recent assassination, as you probably heard, is desperately trying to escalate things. And the message I was given in Laughing Gas was, don't worry about your Earth. I've already deployed my best. Unprecedented peace will now be waged upon your Earth. So I'll leave you with that thought. Take care. All the love in the world.